This is Anne Russell. I'm reading my book, Alcohol and Pregnancy, My Responsible Disturbance. And I'm reading the second part of chapter 12, A Fair Selection. It was perseveration that controlled Seth's and by default my life. It would develop into obsession, and if he wanted something, I would find it very difficult to deny him. I didn't want to. I didn't believe it was right for him or for us. We often didn't have the money, or the item was usually unnecessary or too young for him, but it didn't matter. We had absolutely no choice in the matter if we didn't want to see him in court for assault or domestic violence, or much more money spent in order to fix the damage he wrought. Perseveration often played its part in Seth losing friends. Each time he was either angry with them or unbearably wounded, he was mystified as to why they had withdrawn their friendship. At no time was there any self-reflection, nor could there have been. His brain just wasn't set up for insight and reflection. He just did not understand his part in any breakup. While he blamed the other party, Don and I, even Mick, could clearly see that his fixation on anything and everything, his dismaturity and lack of social skills, had usually caused the problem. At school, where all children are expected to behave and learn in the same way at the same pace, is the environment in which self-esteem and self-confidence can be severely compromised in children with FASD. It's important that teachers understand that a child with FASD needs accommodations to be made in order for them to succeed, and that fair does not mean the same. Though we found that structure and routine made for a less volatile family life, at school changes were frequent. High school in particular was the cause of many meltdowns. He had a different teacher and a different classroom for each subject. I did work closely with the vice principal, who seemed to want to try and help Seth through the rough patches. However, he was forced to take a step back when Seth continually flouted school rules. Coupled with his disruptive behaviour, his drug use and regular truancy, it was all but impossible for him to support Seth, as he was continually walking the tight wire of expulsion. Had we any idea that he had a diagnosable disability, things may have been very different. Children with FASD need to have structure and routine in their day to do the best job possible at school. Teachers must change their expectations and redefine success for children with FASD. The classroom should be as stimulus-free as possible. No posters on the walls, books and bookcases covered when not in use. Dangling or colourful objects should be removed or covered. Windows closed and covered with blinds to ensure auditory and visual distractions. Instructions few and single-step, only using concrete language. And those children in the classroom identified at risk for FASD need to be monitored for their particular idiosyncrasies. For example, are their sensory issues visual, auditory, tactile or kinesthetic? Do they need instructions written down? Do they need to be partitioned off from other children to give them a chance to focus? If a teacher says, "Jeffrey, don't beat around the bush, tell me the question I asked. Tell me the answer to the question I asked." While the teacher is waiting for an answer, Jeffrey is thinking of bushes and sticks, not that he has to be quick with his answer. Not only is he likely to misunderstand the context and content of the sentence, but he will also be confused about the instruction that comes after, because he will be hung up on trying to understand how bushes and sticks factor into what the teacher has said. He might have trouble understanding which question she means. Was it the question about maths or the question about the question? So people with FASD can't generalise learning, so if a child is told not to climb a tree, he must also be told not to climb all trees, because he could be thinking that if he was caught climbing the tree near the oval, he can still climb the tree near the classroom. Apart from the implied safety concerns, the teacher has, because the student is climbing a tree on school grounds, she hasn't realised that he can't generalise information. Of course, she meant he wasn't allowed to climb any tree at the school, and he might hear that it's only that tree he was climbing when the teacher found him that he can't climb. So what happens when he innocently climbs the tree near the classroom? He gets into trouble. And of course he's confused because he thought he was doing the right thing. He wonders how he got into trouble. Again, if this happens often enough, he will possibly develop an anxiety disorder. Anxiety is the start of secondary disabilities and should be avoided at all costs. It could articulate into self-medication when older, and then an addiction and entrenched mental health problems take on a life of their own. Success also has to be redefined. Seth lost so much of himself in high school that my heart breaks when I think about how much he must have struggled, how hard it must have been for him, and how it is for others like him. I remember buying him a book on self-esteem and confidence. Reading it to him nightly helped me believe I was helping him. In reality, I'd be surprised if anything I did or said made a difference to his situation. What he needed was what a person in a wheelchair would have needed: the proper supports and environment, and of course his teachers to build a metaphorical ramp in order for him to learn. At the moment, children with FASD are left at the bottom step, wondering how they're even going to get to the classroom, let alone learn the curriculum as it stands. The dreadful difficulties Seth experienced in late primary and high school were key factors in his desire to self-medicate with alcohol and marijuana, and possibly for his many suicide attempts during that time. Sadder still is that there are so many other children experiencing the same things. In the 80s and 90s, ignorance of this condition could be forgiven. But now in the 21st century, in 2021, how easily we can envisage a life of depression and chronic sadness as a result of never knowing why or how you got into trouble, not to mention the complete frustration these incidents must cause. It's clear why 96% of people with FASD have a mental illness and 60% come into contact with the criminal justice system. A perfect example of this is in the form of the cartoon shown. I'll show you this cartoon. So it says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. And we've got a lion, a bird, an elephant, a monkey, a seal, a penguin, and a fish in a fishbowl. And the fair selection is that everybody has to climb the tree. So this is from Albert Einstein, and he says, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. And I have to ask, in a case like that, who is the neurotypical person? The person who designs the test or the person who isn't able to climb the tree? We're working in an environment where only the monkeys in our world can succeed. What about the gifts that others can bring? Instead of relegating them to mental health facilities, homelessness shelters, and lives that few of us can imagine, why aren't we giving them different exams, teaching them in different ways, supporting them to succeed? If I'd known Seth couldn't climb a tree, I would have understood why. When things became too difficult, he would not persist. Not only would I have understood, but I could have provided an environment where he could have succeeded, perhaps after success had been redefined. Instead of believing success was completing his homework accurately, success could have been completing half his homework, or even just attempting his homework, or having different homework. So this is an example of the lateral thinking of a dedicated mother. A lady that I spoke to a long time ago from overseas. I can't even remember where she's from, but so the teacher explained that she, 7 years old, had no hope of learning the alphabet. I laminated each letter, one in uppercase and one in lowercase. I put 6 letters each time in no particular order along the fence and gave her a ball. Each time I called out a letter, she had to throw the ball at the letter. for a child who knows no hope. Who has no hope, she knows every letter. So this is this is a note from the author. While this is an inspired method of teaching a child who learns differently, a child with FASD may have trouble generalising this learning to the schoolroom. She may learn the letters of the alphabet while playing that game, but may not be able to express that learning when required at school. So that's the end of the chapter, A Fair Selection. And the chapter was all about this cartoon from Albert Einstein, about everybody having to take the same test. All right, thank you very much.